Hi, I'm Kesenya and I'm your Astro Weather Girl here with this week's Astro Weather Report. Thanks so much for joining me. This week in astrology is going to be quite a telling week. We're going to be looking at the new moon. Stick with me for this introduction because there's just so much to learn from what's going to be happening in the skies this week. And you'll need to pay attention to the intro in order to be able to apply it to your life and to understand better what I'm talking about when I go through each of the signs. But it's heavy this week, really heavy. And, I love to look at things from a fresh perspective of light and joy where possible. And I'm certainly wearing blue and greens today to try and channel the energy of Neptune and Jupiter, which are our positive hope in these times. But I know right now we are all concerned about the future and what's going to happen. When's this going to end? When is the change coming and what is going to be the results of this change? Well, all we can do as astrologers is give you the weather report. Like any meteorologist would, we look at the indicators, we look at the signals, we look at what's happened before in the past when these same kind of factors were at play, and we make an educated guess like a meteorologist would when they're giving the weather. The same goes for me as the Astro Weather Girl. I'm looking at what's gone before and how these patterns have played out in the past, how they might play out in the future. So what I'm going to be offering you here is an educated guess, let's say. I'm also a passionate lover of regression work. And probably nearly 6 months ago actually, I went to a weekend-long seminar with Brian Weiss. Brian is a brilliant physician and psychiatrist who lives in Miami, and he traveled to Australia with Hay House to give a talk, which he does quite frequently actually. And it was magnificent. He's a brilliant regressionist and he's done a lot of work and research in the field of regression, past life regression, and also future progression and how it serves to heal his clients. So do check that out if you're interested in this sort of thing. But what I really was drawn to recently, as I thought about this time I'd spent with Brian at this seminar, was the stories that came back from clients who had been progressed into their future and what they saw, not only for themselves individually, but for all of humanity in their progressed state. And I want to share a few insights with you regarding that now in the hope that it will lift you up and give you some support and some encouragement about what we can expect is going to happen to the earth within our communities in the future. I also want to say that it is possible, with the help of a really good regressionist or progressionist, to go into your future and see what's in store for you. Now, I am currently working on being able to do that to help people. I'm not at that stage yet, but there are other regressionists, progressionists out there, particularly good ones who work with astrology and progression, and they are worth checking out if you would like to progress through hypnosis into your future and see what the opportunities are for you. And I say opportunities because in the future, we are influenced by our decisions that we make here and now. I want to share with you I'm going to read to you a couple of passages out of this book, which is Same Soul, Many Bodies by Brian Weiss, and it talks about the future and how we approach progression work when we're doing hypnosis. And stick with me, I am going to get to the astrology, but I think it's very helpful for us to gain some perspective in these times of upheaval. And we will certainly be seeing how that's playing out when we get to start looking at the weather in a couple of minutes. So let me read to you. I believe that we can see the future because some part of us responds to the fact that present, past, and future are one, occurring in a simultaneous time, quite different from the longitudinal years, months, days, hours, and minutes by which we measure time on Earth. Quite literally, the future is now, and even on this planet, we can shape our nows by our actions. That is why it is so important to prepare not only for the rest of our lives, but for all our lives to come in the future for immortality. And we're talking about reincarnation here, future lives, and how our future lives unfold depends very much on the decisions and actions we take in this lifetime. The future seems to be a flexible destination, and I will just add, that's a flexible destination for us as individuals and for humanity and the earth as a whole, as well as a collective. There exists a multitude of possible futures and probable futures across a vast statistical spectrum. Our individual immediate futures in this life and those shortly to come depend to a large extent, as we have seen through this book, on our choices and our actions in the present. Our long-term futures, our collective futures, the future of our planet, which may exist forever, but which we may destroy by destroying it, we will not stop our progress towards the one. These things depend on the cumulative decisions of all people. What those decisions are can be seen in the view of the future some 1,000 years from now. The closer we get to a particular future, the more accurate we can be at predicting it. It is important to look 1,000 years and more ahead because the earth today is becoming dangerous. And perhaps if we apply more wisdom to our decisions because of what we see, we can alter the direction of the future, starting right now. When I work with the groups who attend my seminars, I progress them into the distant future, into discrete time periods, 100 years from now, 500 years, 1,000 years or more. I want to see if there is an agreement in the visions, for if they match, then there is a good chance there is truth in them, and that the world will look and feel much as they foretell. My experiments are still young when he wrote this book. This was some years ago when he wrote this book. But I have found such striking similarities in 90% of cases that more and more I have come to believe that there is an excellent chance, scores of lifetimes hence, that a glorious world awaits us. Good news, good news. In my group progressions, as I've said, I try to take the attendees to 3 stops on the journey to the future. 100 years from now, 500 years from now, and 1,000 years from now. This is not exact. People always have the freedom to explore any realm at any time. But as a guideline, they and I find it helpful. And what have we found? In 100 years, or even 200 years, the world will be pretty much the same as it is now. There have been natural and man-made calamities, tragedies and disasters, but not on a global level. There are more toxins, more crowding, more pollution and more global warming. There are fewer virulent diseases and better methods for growing and harvesting food and so forth. But to paraphrase the Stephen Sondheim song, we're still here, virtually intact. After this period, it could be as near as 300 years or as far away as 600 years, there will begin a second dark ages. I don't know what causes the darkness, thus the need for refinement, but we see a vastly diminished population. The explanation may be a decline in fertility rate because of the poisons in the environment. Already there is ample scientific evidence that sperm mortality rates are decreasing. But viruses, poisons, asteroids, meteors, wars, plagues, or an as yet undreamed of calamity may also be responsible. Remember, we're talking about 600 years into the future here. Some of us won't reincarnate in that time. Our consciousness may have changed enough so that we will be watching from another place, from another dimension. We may not have to be here anymore. Our futures may be more progressed individually than the future of the planet. Some of us may reincarnate in other dimensions or other worlds. In my previous book, Messages from the Masters, I wrote about a concern that the world was moving from a one-room schoolhouse, in other words, that the earth is a place of learning for primary level souls, where the 1st through the 12th graders were crowded together into the elementary and the middle schools. But the high school isn't here on earth and won't be until we stop the process of pollution, destruction and death. Some people have surely reached high school and others have gone to college, but they are already in a different realm and are arriving in larger and larger numbers. They have reached the point where they don't have to reincarnate on Earth anymore, and perhaps the high schoolers are helping us from afar. Those in college are focused on graduate school, the place where they coalesce and become part of the one. One of Brian's clients, Christina, had a progression that was very vivid, and she saw the world as it would be in the year 3200, so about 1200 rather, years from now. And he writes, "The earth is very green," she said, "much greener and more fertile than it is now. The forests are lush, the meadows filled with flowers, but funnily enough, there are no animals. Why, when there's so much food for them to eat? There aren't many people either. They can communicate with one another telepathically, and their bodies, less dense than ours, are filled with light. They live in small groups, not cities, in lovely houses made of wood or stone, and they seem to be farmers. I can see liquid or liquid light pouring into the plants. Sometimes the liquid pours into the people themselves. The people are extremely spiritual. I can't see any illness, any real danger or anger, or any violence or war. There's a certain translucent quality to everything, a permeating light that connects everyone and everything in peace." And just to conclude this reading, and thanks for sticking with me because I think it's comforting to know that this vision of the future exists. Brian concludes with saying, "In time, I think the people's collective consciousness that yearns for a more peaceful and idyllic world will achieve it. To do it, each of us must remember that our fate is to be immortal. Alas, too many of us don't know this, or in the press of the everyday events, we forget it." I love this message, and it's something I've been clinging to for the last few weeks as this difficult period is unfolding upon us. And it's a beautiful reminder that we are immortal. This moment in time is not going to affect us 200 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, as our souls keep reincarnating in various places all over the universe. This moment in time, this upheaval, is but a blip, and yes, it's difficult to navigate, but the more we try to raise our conscious awareness and our vibration, the more we can change what happens in the future to our planet, to our communities, to ourselves. And I am keen and delighted to work towards that end. And I hope that that little bit of reading has brought some encouragement to you. But it's time we got stuck into the weather. This week on April the 22nd or the 23rd, depending on where you are in the world, we're going to have a new moon at 3 degrees of Taurus, and you can see it. Where is it? Oh, we're on an odd angle, but here in Taurus, the moon, the sun, and hello, Uranus is there too. So there's going to be a new moon conjunct with Uranus. Not only that, which could be a handful in itself, full of unexpected sudden changes and events that we didn't see coming. But the heaviness that comes into this is going to be happening because of almost an exact square from Saturn in Aquarius. So this is a difficult new moon because of that Saturn square and the involvement of unexpected Uranus. Let's take a look at what this is going to mean for us. Now, the actions that we undertake at the time of the full moon are very, very important. And the reason for that is because what we decide to do, how we enact, how we treat others, how kind we are, where we invest our money, how we eat, and all the actions that we undertake right now are going to have their fruition, their fullness, in about a month's time when there is a full moon. Sorry, not a month's time, 2 weeks' time when there's a full moon in the sign of Scorpio. So what you do now will have consequences and fruition at the fullness of the moon in 2 weeks. The moon is at its smallest, invisible actually, and then it's going to wax and grow to its biggest potential, and we will see the results of our actions. So not only our actions, but our intentions in 2 weeks' time as well, which is why it's a good time to set intentions. But I also want to point out that there is also a 6-month trajectory involved with this, and that's because we have a new moon occurring in Taurus, and it will be 6 months before there is a full moon occurring in the sign of Taurus. And so during that time, the actions that we take around the time of the new moon in Taurus, and whatever house that applies to for us, we'll go through all the houses shortly, whatever actions we take in that realm are going to reach their fullness and their manifestation for us completely in 6 months' time when we have a full moon in the sign of Taurus. So what you sow now, you will reap in 6 months' time. So sow wisely, sow well, give kindness, give love, give compassion now, eat healthy now, invest your money wisely now, and in 6 months' time there will be the consequences, the fullness, the fruition of those actions as well. So there's a 2-week scale we're looking at here, and also a 6-month scale that we're actually working on right now as well. So get ready. This impact is going to be with us for a while, and as I said, it is a difficult new moon. Uranus is bringing in the unexpected. Uranus is bringing in a need for change. While Saturn makes issues of authority, issues of restriction, blockage, rules, regulations, these are going to be pretty hard to take right now because of the square, the hard aspect, that restrictive kind of challenging aspect that's being made to this. Be warned, frustration on the planet is about to rise in some way. Uranus is a planet that wants freedom, it wants liberation, it wants truth, it wants to do things its own way independently, and it's about rebellion and breaking free, breaking out. Doing nothing at this time, when we're feeling restricted and blocked by Saturn, doing nothing is going to be like torture to us. And already there's people struggling with lockdown, particularly extroverts who want to get out there and be with people and interact and socialize and want to get to work and so forth, and they're stuck in their homes and they're just tearing their hair out. Be prepared, the frustration might rise because doing nothing, when we're not able to change our situation and our lives and our world, we can feel suffocated. And that's part of the energy of this new moon. Saturn is going to make us feel weighed down, lonely, depressed, condemned. So it's hard at this time to make the changes that we are desiring in our lives. Sudden changes might happen that we don't want. Serious changes might be happening. Saturn is seriousness, Uranus is change. So we might find some serious changes occurring in our realities right now. But if we act impulsively, Uranus is to act impulsively. If we act impulsively, there could be serious authoritarian repercussions. Saturn. There could be serious consequences. So we need to act with caution and care over the next 2 weeks. Now, stick with me here. I'm going to get to the positivity that may be at the core of all this that we can draw on to support us through this time. But first of all, I need to address where the challenges are coming from astrologically. So how do we deal in the best possible way with this challenging new moon? Well, first of all, a new moon indicates a fresh start is happening in some way, because that's what a new moon is. The sun and the moon conjunct, it's the end of a 1-month lunar cycle, and the moon is about to make a whole new lunar cycle again. And it does that 13 times a year. So when we have a new moon, it is a great time to quit old habits, to turn over a new leaf, to make a new start, to purge old beliefs. And so it's a really good time to sort of think about what you want to change, what you want to alter in your life. Now, you mightn't be able to take action under this sky right now. There might be restrictions and blockages to you doing that, but it's a good time to think about the changes you want. Journal about them. Write a new agenda or list of I want to renovate this in my house. I want to renovate this in my body. I want to, whatever it happens to be that you want to restructure and change. Think about those things now. You can also do therapy now and focus on meditation now. These are really healthy things, because when we are having a new moon, what is happening is we are ending one cycle and beginning another. One cycle of the moon's sojourn around the earth is done and a new cycle begins. So we want to purge and release things that don't help us now too. Things that are outworn in us now as well. So do some inward introspection at the time of the new moon. Look at your life. What is not helping you? What is holding you back? What attitudes and beliefs have you got in your heart that need to go if you're to feel free, to feel liberated and alive? One ceremony you might like to practice, and look, I love ceremony. There's a lot of different ways we can do ceremony, and oftentimes it's just very simple. And ceremony is not going, or a ritual is not going to change your outer world, but what it does is creates a metaphor or a symbol for the change that has occurred within us. So you might like to light a candle, get a bunch of toothpicks, and go through your list of attitudes and fears and needed change, whatever your list is all about, things that you want to let go of. And for each one of those, put the toothpick in the candle, let it burn as you say what that attitude or belief or whatever is, and then pop your little burning toothpick in a bowl beside you so that you don't burn your fingers, and just go through and get and symbolically, ceremonially release those things at the time of the new moon. It's very healthy. And then start fresh with your new intentions for what you're going to change. How else can we deal with this new moon energy in a positive way? Well, Uranus indicates that we need to be adaptive. Uranus is highly flexible and changeable, so we need to be adaptive to changes as they arise in our lives. We need to give our energy to really positive Uranian things now. So do a bit of, research, jump online and do one of my webinars, dig deep into astrology, because Uranus rules astrology. Maybe you might like to watch some science documentaries on television. You might like to enjoy jumping on the internet and, maybe doing some internet shopping. Uranus in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is about shopping. Uranus is the internet. Researching any metaphysical subjects, researching, organic food practices, or connecting online with a social group of people who practice sustainability. These kind of things, if you direct your energy to these Uranus in Taurus things, that is a healthy way to deal with this difficult energy under this new moon, rather than being reactive, to suddenly go off half-cocked, to sort of break out in rebelliousness and screw you all, giving the bird to any authority figures who dare get in your way and then suffering the repercussions. No. Direct your Uranian energy now into healthy Uranian things that are going to keep you from getting in trouble in the long run. How can we deal with the Saturn energy that's involved with this configuration? Well, we need to be patient. This is the higher manifestation of Saturn energy, and it's what we need to draw right now, rather than the lower energy of blockage and restriction and control. We need to practice patience right now, and we need to be determined as well. New moons indicate a period of determination. If you have a new moon in your natal chart, it indicates generally that you'll be quite a determined person. Sometimes your ego and your emotions won't quite line up, but there's a determination that lies with a new moon energy. And so Saturn being fed into this new moon just increases the level of determination. So hopefully we're not going to experience a determined, hard-nosed, hard-headed, authoritarian determination in our lives, but as in our personal lives, it's really great idea if we can be patient and go through this process of whatever unfolds with hard work and with determination to endure and persevere. Acceptance is also a very key component to being able to work well with Saturn energy. So the more that you can accept what is going on in the world, be stoic about it, and be, realistic. Okay, this is what's happening. This is what is. Right, what do I need to do in a practical sense, in an objective way, in a realistic way to navigate this energy? The more that you can channel that higher energy of Saturn, the better off you're going to be at this time. Take a mature and sensible approach to life now. That's channeling the highest energy of Saturn. So above all, don't overreact to the circumstances that might arise. Don't go into panic mode. Don't go and buy a ton more toilet paper when you've already got an overflowing cupboard full of it. Take responsibility for all your problems right now. Be proactive where you can be, and practice patience and perseverance where you can't be. Look out for opportunities as well. Remember, we're still under the energy of Pluto conjunct Jupiter, which is to see opportunity in crisis. So do take that on board as well right now, and look for the opportunities in this time. How can you serve other people? How can you help others? How could you make money out of this situation in legitimate, ethical, above board ways? Look for opportunities. As I said, take care of people in your immediate environment as well. Saturn is where we need to offer our service to the world to resolve our karma. So right now, if you are wanting to get rid of your karmic baggage, offer service to the world, to other people, to the people who come across your path each day, and see how you can help. And that will just be generally helping with resolving Saturn karma. Now there is good news. This is a hard transit that we're all going to have to go through, but there's good news. And this is because a couple of things. First of all, we've got the moon making a sextile, this new moon rather, making a sextile to the North Node. A sextile is a helpful aspect. Often we don't notice sextiles because as human beings, we kind of just expect, or we have this attitude that, well, yeah, good things happen and bad things happen, but we don't even notice the good things a lot of the time. We get so hung up on the bad things, but the good things are happening to us in our lives, all around us, all the time. It's just that we get our blinkered vision on this is bad, and this is falling apart, and we fail to notice that packet of chocolate biscuits in the cupboard to have while we watch our favorite movie at night on Netflix. That's wonderful. That's fun. That's joy, because we're so hung up on the negative. But this sextile is a positive, helpful aspect. And so there are good things going on right now. There is the promise of change. Uranus, change. New moon, fresh starts, new beginnings, the promise of change for our collective destiny. North Node represents where we're heading, what we want more of, where we are going individually. Our destiny point is the North Node, but also as the collective. We have this beautiful support for change that's going to take us into a better collective destiny, into more of what we desire as a collective. So yes, we've got to go through the upheavals and the goodness knows what that's coming. Yes, we've got to go through that, but it's so that we can have more of a rise into our collective destiny. So even if it feels like we have to go through tragedy at first, we are actually in a labor pain year, a birthing year. We are in the labor ward of the hospital as a collective, being birthed into greater things, a greater destiny for humanity. All the reading that I did from that Brian Weiss book illustrates this. And we have a choice. We have a choice. We can create our future now by the choices that we make in this moment. And we're being asked to hang on to the mast of the ship while the ship navigates the big troughs and peaks of the waves. The storm of 2020 is pretty hefty, and nobody will deny that. But we're asked to hang on right now, knowing that it is the birthing process for a brand new destiny for our humanity. So look for the opportunities, hang on tight, don't overreact, and let's get through this somehow together. Now, the conjunction of Uranus with the new moon also speaks of liberation for many people right now and many people's future. Uranus is quite oriented to the future, actually. It's very progressive and forward looking. And so this new moon speaks of liberation for many people's futures. So job loss now could mean propulsion into your true life mission in the long term. Enforced lockdown now could mean that greater bonds are formed with your family that are going to last the rest of your life. You'll connect with your kids in ways you would never have otherwise done, and that's going to give you a solid foundation. Taurus is a very fixed sign where all this is happening, solid foundation for your future as a family. Having to move back home with mum and dad because for some reason you can't afford to pay the rent or the bills anymore, and oh my God, I'm going to have to move home with mum and dad. The opportunity that could come out of that is that you move home to your hometown with mum and dad or whatever, and you meet the love of your life. You know, you end up going home and you end up falling in love with someone from back in your home environment, or you make a new friendship that transforms your life in some way. So these are just a few illustrations of how disasters in life can actually flip around and be for our greater good, our greater overall life destiny. Uranus, as part of this conjunction, actually is telling us that through this we're going to become more authentic, more liberated, more free as individuals and as a collective. So cling to that mast as you navigate the waves. Cling to that mast of the ship. Don't get too bogged down in the, oh my God, a square from Saturn, restriction, blockage, authoritarianism, blah, 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 sudden changes that are unexpected and they're going to be this and they're going to be that. Try to cling to the mask of this is going to liberate humanity. Let's make choices now that liberate my life, that liberate your life, that liberate the collective and help us to be more authentic, real, grounded in Taurus, natural human beings that are at our best level. So never forget also that at this moment we've got, and I might just flip this around so I can draw it properly, we have Jupiter making a sextile to Neptune as well. Now there's a 6-degree orb difference between these two, but that's close enough. Usually I work with a 5 or 6 degree orb for my planets. That's just how I function. But Neptune, Jupiter, they're brothers in ancient mythology. They both are sons of Saturn. And these two co-rule Pisces together. And there's a lot of similarities between these two. And they're connecting very beautifully with a sextile at the moment during this transit as well. So never forget that. What this means is we're going to have a strong intuition. Go with your gut at this time regarding what choices to make for your future. Trust the angel on your shoulder because this conjunction indicates that we're on the money with it. Our gut instincts are usually going to be right. We can trust our psychic intuition. We're going to end up being more spiritually enlightened out of this process as well. We're going to actually understand what spirit is doing more. We're going to sort of feel our spiritual lives expand as we learn to trust the universe, as we trust in the process, as we look deep into ourselves and hang on to our spirituality through this storm of 2020. So this sextile is reminding us of that and calling us to greater depths of spirituality. Our charity and our kindness as individuals and as a collective can really increase now. So beautiful. And we're seeing this. You know, one of my dear precious girlfriends, she lives in a very small rural town in Australia. Hello to Danielle if you're watching. And she started a program where she put some shelves out the front of her home and people could drop off homegrown food like vegetables and anything else like that they felt would benefit other people. And it was left out in front of her home available for anyone who is in need to come and grab a pumpkin or to come and, you know, perhaps get some clothes or some socks or something that someone had left out the front on her come and take what you need shelf. Such a beautiful gesture in these times. And there's just so many gorgeous stories of compassion and kindness that are bubbling up around the place. We need to see more of this, and we will under the influence of the Jupiter-Neptune sextile that's occurring. We're also getting a lot more creative inspiration. that comes out of this time. That illustration I gave you of my friend Danielle, that's a perfect illustration. Here she's come up with a creative yet charitable and kind solution to problems of need right now. So we're going to come up with creative solutions, creative avenues that we can take now to help us through our loneliness, to help us through our lockdown period, to help us through our job loss. And it's out of this that new visions and new opportunities can be born. Neptune is vision, Jupiter is opportunity, and our creative approaches right now are going to be what helps us most into the future. So draw on that. But also, and this is one of the lovely things about a Jupiter-Neptune sextile, growth and opportunity are possible now. Growth and good fortune are possible now. So lovely. And remember, what is the stronger planet here? Neptune. Because Neptune is further out than Saturn, than Uranus, than Jupiter. Neptune, faith, hope, trust, unconditional love. Sit with Neptune right now. And because Neptune is this further outer planet, it's stronger. The further out you go, the stronger the planets that become. And that's why Pluto packs an awful punch in everybody's lives when he does a transit there, or collectively with, conjunct to Jupiter, like what happened a couple of weeks ago with the economy. But Neptune is just so strong because it takes so long to move, and the energy builds up in the one spot and is felt keenly rather than a whip around by the sun that we feel for a day or two. This energy of Neptune making a sextile with Jupiter right now is strong, and we can trust it. We can tap into it knowing that good fortune can be the result of this transit, and opportunity and growth. So I wanted to let you know that this is not all disaster under this new moon. So let's do a whip around each of the signs. How about let's start with Taurus, because that's where the new moon is occurring. So for you guys, this is the realm, the first house realm, and we're using whole sign astrology here. So the first house is Taurus when our rising degree is in the sign of Taurus. This is where you're going to feel frustrated right now. So you might be feeling frustrated about your ability to thrive and survive right now. Where's the money coming from? How am I going to feed my family? This sort of thing. There could be frustrations about the ability to thrive and survive. There could be frustrations about your appearance. Maybe you're putting on a ton of weight because you're just eating chocolate biscuits every night in front of the telly instead of going out and doing the exercise that you would otherwise have done in a non-lockdown mode. So there can be frustrations with the body and the bodily health right now that come under this influence as well. This is also an area where you need to, so I'm just giving you an awareness of where you might be feeling frustrated under this new moon. You need to avoid impulsive action in this area as well, because it could lead to serious consequences. So let's say you're getting a bit tubby because you're just eating in lockdown, and you decide, oh screw it, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go for a jog around the park. And I don't know what the restrictions are like in every country around the world, whether you can or can't do that sort of thing. Fortunately in Australia we can, but there are some places where the lockdown restrictions are just pretty severe. And you say, screw the lockdown restrictions, I need to go for a jog. And so out you go. You have this impulsive action, out the door, go for a jog, and then serious consequences. Here's your fine. You need to get back home. You're not allowed to be out. So we need to be careful of impulsive actions in this realm. The other thing we need to do is be adaptive and be mature at this time. So instead of being reactive and saying, screw you, I'm going out for a jog when we can't, you need to be adaptive and mature. Maybe that means that you need to do some exercise in your home instead of taking it outside. Or maybe, you need to focus on how can you create, like being adaptive, how can you create an income from your home right now? In what way can you provide something, some service online or through, some kind of an offering to the world? It'll probably have to be in the online scenario, but you'll be looking now ways to be adaptive with how you survive, ways to be mature about how you're dealing with your body right now, and avoiding making those over impulsive, reactionary endeavors that could land you in hot water at this time. All right, let's take a peek now at Gemini. Well, this is putting the new moon in your 12th house, guys. So if you're Gemini rising, this is in your 12th house. And so you might find that something's getting dissolved for you right now. There could be some frustration that arises with something being dissolved out of your life during the next couple of weeks. You might find that there's some frustration with maybe your spiritual practice. It's just not gelling like it usually is, or you're so worried and so full of fear about what's going on in the world that you can't tap into your spiritual side as easily, and that feels like it's just dissolving in front of you. So frustration around that. Maybe some frustration about how you can't perform creatively like you usually would, or you can't escape the way you might want to. You might have had a holiday planned or something, and you can't take that holiday now because of everything that's happening in the world. So there's something to do with the 12th house and what the 12th house rules that could be causing you frustration under this new moon. You want to avoid impulsive action under this influence of this new moon. So impulsive action regarding the 12th house could mean you just say, screw the lockdown, I'm going to go out to my local church or my Buddhist center or whatever because I need to connect with my spiritual side. 12th house is spiritual side, and 12th house rules ashrams and monasteries and places like that. And you're like, screw lockdown, I'm going to go to my place of spirituality because I need it. And you act rashly and you act impulsively regarding some 12th house thing. And you get in trouble and you suffer the serious consequences, and there's the fine. Thank you very much for going out and going to a place of public worship, which are off limits at the moment. One example, but there you might have some impulsive actions that land you in hot water now if you undertake them, regarding creativity in some way, regarding perhaps escaping, like to a place like a church or a hospital. You might decide, I'm going to go visit grandma in the hospital who's in there with COVID-19, and you break all the rules and you go and connect with her even though you're meant to stay clear, and so you suffer the consequences. That could be another thing. Hospitals, ashrams, prisons, other escapist places like day spas or retreats or holiday destinations, although they sort of have gone a bit defunct at the moment, unfortunately. But frustration here in these realms, creativity, spirituality, and escapism, could lead to impulsive actions that land you in hot water. So do be careful. We need to be adaptive right now in 12th house realms, and we need to be mature. So that might mean perhaps respecting the regulations as they are there, and perhaps you might like to do some creative endeavor to counter that. Maybe do a couple of artworks about your feelings about being in quarantine. Maybe write a children's book about being in lockdown with your kids, and you produce a children's book and get the kids to join in with the illustrations. I'm talking about creative processes here that can be a better channeling of energy than to go off half-cocked and frustrated at the world right now. Be adaptive, be patient, channel the higher Saturnian energies regarding these frustrations. All right, if we are Cancer rising, then the energy of the new moon is falling in the 11th house. And so it's 11th house things where we might be feeling frustrated and where we might be feeling like we need to take impulsive action that could land us in hot water. So do be very careful. And we're talking here about revolutionary actions, protests, joining with friends and groups of people to sort of stick it to the man kind of thing that can happen under this 11th house influence of the new moon. Now, I'm not one to say don't do that. I'm all for peaceful protests and change that needs to happen. Believe me, I'm all for that. But do be careful of any rashness if this is what the action that you're going to undertake. do be careful of any sort of impulsive action that could land you in hot water with serious consequences. So by all means, make a protest, or join an online group that's trying to raise awareness of something, or get some sort of bill through legislation that you really believe in. By all means do that, but try and keep it mature. Try and keep those sorts of endeavors very flexible, and don't be reactive in those circumstances. I think we all need to look at how we can create a better, more equal society, and that's seen by the 11th house. How we can create more harmony and more, particularly with Taurus here. You Cancer people have a great responsibility to help bring wealth equality to the world. And so don't neglect that responsibility now. You might get the chance under this new moon to really instigate some action in that realm. But do it with maturity. Do it with a sense of responsibility and methodically, not, flying off, using the term half-cocked quite a bit here in this description, but try and avoid that. Uranus will probably give you the impetus to want to do that, but you must act with maturity now, the higher level of Saturn, if you are to be effective in that regard. You can also find there's frustration with friends. Maybe the friends don't agree with your perspectives on things, and that's annoying, that's frustrating. Avoid impulsive action around that. Avoid impulsive action on the internet as well. Somebody's saying something on their Facebook page and you don't agree with it, so you get into a full-on attack with them. And where does that leave you? What does that accomplish? Nothing, just to exacerbate frustration in the world. So try to act with more maturity and responsibility this week in regards to these things: friends, internet, activism, humanitarian causes. And you guys, Cancer rising people, can actually achieve a lot for the world at this time through acting with maturity and balance right now. So, moving on from Cancer, we're looking at Leo rising people, and the new moon will be falling in the 10th house. This is the realm where you might be feeling frustrated if you're Leo rising, and it's probably going to have something to do with career and the ability to achieve what you want in the world. Obviously, there are restrictions, there are blockages in place that are keeping you from being able to do what you want in the world. And that's just the way it is right now. We can't go and be at our place of work where we're trying to climb the career ladder, or there might be something else that occurs where we can't achieve what we want and there are restrictions and blockages, and that's frustrating, and we can act then impulsively because of that, where we might say, well, screw you all, I'm gonna go into work even though I've been told not to, and that I'm not essential to go into work, and you go into work and then you get fined. So career, worldly achievements, this is the place where we can get frustrated. We might also get frustrated with bosses. If you're Leo rising, be very careful. You can enter into sort of argy-bargy situations with bosses, have impulsive actions that sort of a bit rebellious, a bit sort of giving them the bird kind of to authority figures, governmental authorities, the regulation makers, the rule makers. You guys need to be very careful about thumbing your nose to those people right now, because this is a time under the influence of this new moon for the next 2 weeks that you can suffer serious consequences. So I'd encourage you to be adaptive, to be mature. If you're pulled over on the side of the road heading into work and you're given a fine by a policeman, be mature about it. Don't thumb your nose at the authority figures, which could just make things so much worse for you. Be mature about it. If you're struggling with a government authority and you just want to give them the bird or give them a mouthful of what you really think, that kind of thing. Be adaptive, be mature, channel the higher energy of Saturn, which is to be responsible right now, and to take a patient, enduring approach. And you'll be able to get through this time and still breathe out the other side. So do be careful with authority figures at this time. They might be very frustrating for you and cause you to act impulsively. So awareness and knowledge is power, guys. All right, Virgo rising people. the energy of this new moon is falling for you guys in the ninth house. And this is where you might be feeling frustrated. So you might have had plans to go for a trip or a holiday and go travel somewhere. You might have, wanted to go and join some cultural experience, or, participate in some activity of higher learning and higher knowledge or some sort. And because of restrictions and blockages and lockdowns and quarantines and things, just can't happen. And you're like, oh, I've had enough. I'm frustrated because of these things in my life that I really want, but I'm so over this. And you act impulsively and irrationally and go off half-cocked. Uranus, as part of this full moon, can cause you to sort of rebel. And be careful around that, because it can have serious consequences under the influence, as we said in the introduction, of the Saturn, the Saturn square that's occurring. Be careful right now that your frustrated actions or your impulsive actions, rather, don't lead you to something that you regret and something that has serious consequences from teachers, from gurus, from inspirational figures who might sort of be critical of you or come down hard on you, or be sort of a bit more somber towards you or serious towards you right now. So be adaptive, be mature, channel the higher energy of Saturn instead. Be patient with these things that are happening in the world right now, with the restrictions that are on travel, that are on going overseas, that are on participating in other cultures. If we can exercise patience, waiting for our chance to go on holiday again and travel again and participate in cultural experiences again and participate in university life again, or whatever it happens to be that's representative of higher learning for us that's being restricted right now. Patience, as we wait for those things, can bring us to a place of more peace rather than getting frustrated. So exercise that muscle of patience, endurance, and perseverance with the way things are at this time. All right, so Libra rising is putting the new moon energy in the 8th house. So Libra rising people, this is going to be an interesting one for you. 8th house is full of crisis and upheaval and challenge. So there's a lot of frustration that could be present because of this global crisis that we're going through, because of the restrictions and blockages that it puts on people. There can be frustration perhaps with other people's money, or with a will or a legacy right now. There could be frustration with the results of a divorce proceeding that's just sending you a bit bazonkers at the moment. There could be frustrations with perhaps your ability to learn or research in some fields, such as metaphysics or criminology or astrology, or something that is a very 8th house field. We can see this new moon might indicate an ending of something. This is a house of endings and also of new beginnings. So there might be some frustrations because something is ending in your life and you're like, damn it, I didn't want that to end. And so that can cause, all these things could cause us to make very impulsive action right now. So, maybe our divorce proceedings are coming to an end and we impulsively decide, screw it, I'm putting that house on the market to sort of pay my lawyer's fees or whatever. And then you don't get the results that you want because its property is suffering right now. It's just one illustration. There's many ways this can play out. So because of your frustration, it can lead you to impulsive actions regarding other people's money, regarding divorces, regarding crisis situations and difficult, challenging, unexpected circumstances, regarding your ability to research and dig deep into things. The frustrations there can lead you to make impulsive actions with regard to those things that you will regret, or that can have serious detrimental consequences. So you must act with the higher level of Saturn energy, which is to be mature, responsible, to endure, to persevere through these roller coaster times. And if you can do that, then out of this feeling of everything's dying, everything's concluding, everything's ending, you can be reborn into something fresh, something new, where you're transformed and reinvigorated because of this. But the way that's going to happen is if you draw on those higher qualities of Saturn energy, to be mature, to be enduring, to work hard at this time at navigating all these things. So do that, and you can see the benefits that may come for you, and it may not come for you for 2 weeks, until there's a full moon in the sign opposite. Here's Taurus, until there's a full moon in the sign of Scorpio. You might not see the results of your endurance and patience and perseverance till then. Or you may not actually see the results for another 6 months, until there's a full moon in Taurus instead of a new moon. So you might have to persevere and endure for quite some time. But Saturn is calling you to do that right now. And if you can, avoid the impulsive reactions, avoid the sort of the tendency to go off because you're frustrated, then you can see better results in time. But you might have to hang on to that ship's mast, as I said in the introduction to this video. If you're Scorpio rising, well, this energy is falling in the 7th house for you. The new moon is in your 7th house, and it's here that you might feel frustrated. Frustrated with business partners, frustrated with your husband or your wife, frustrated with your audience, frustrated with your clients. And frustrations in this realm can cause you to act impulsively and irrationally. Uranus is part of this new moon, which is sudden, impulsive action. You want to avoid that right now, because it can lead to serious consequences that could be very detrimental for you. So, you have a fight with your spouse, and you then, impulse because you're frustrated. You've been together and locked down for months now, and you're absolutely sick of the sight of each other, just want to break from them. And you have this big explosive argument, and you're like, F this. And you go down to, the local law office and file for divorce. Impulsive overreaction, very Uranian. So these kinds of circumstances can arise where you just go off half-cocked to your business partners, or you get frustrated at your clients, and it leads to an impulsive action that you regret, or that has serious consequences for your life in some way. What you want to do instead, if you're Scorpio rising, is be adaptive and be mature, be patient. These are all the higher qualities of Saturn. Be persevering and work towards the long-term potential goals. Saturn is long-term, so you might have to endure for the long term. Yes, we're in lockdown together and we're driving each other crazy. Maybe a mature response, instead of going and filing for divorce, might be to say, you know what? How about you and my son, our son, you share that room, and I'll go and share the room with my daughter, so we can have some space from one another and just some time out from one another for the next week or so, and just get some peace. Just a silly example, but there might be other ways that you can deal with things that aren't so impulsively fired up, that are actually much more beneficial. Look for a mature solution. Be adaptive to solutions in your relationships right now. Be, like I said, mature, and be persevering right now. The more you draw on those higher qualities of Saturn, the more you can receive benefit. For many people, you might notice that this will reach its fruition in about 2 weeks' time. For some people, it might not reach its fullness for another 6 months, when we have a full moon in the sign of Taurus. So there could be some long roads of endurance required here, but the results can be very, very worth it in the end. Okay, the rising sign of Sagittarius. I love Sagittarius people. Hello, you know who you are. Sagittarius rising people puts this energy of the new moon into your 6th house, and this is where you could be experiencing some frustration this week and for the next 2 weeks, until we enter into the full moon in Scorpio that will be occurring. So there's some frustration that might happen with regard to your health and well-being. You might be getting frustrated because you're just eating too many chocolate biscuits in front of the telly instead of being active out there in the world like you usually are, and so your weight's expanding. Health and well-being. You might be getting frustrated because your work life is suffering under lockdown right now and you can't work, or there's restrictions and blockages around work. You're not able to work, and the frustration for that might be just, up to the eyeballs in its level of irritation for you. There might be frustrations with your pets right now, There might be frustrations with your employees right now. There might be frustrations that are occurring with enemies in your life. Maybe you're getting attacked on the internet, or somebody keeps, stealing something out of your garage. And so there's this energy of things being out of balance in life that are causing you to tear your hair out in frustration. Under this new moon, you will notice that becoming quite predominant. I want to tell you, don't let it lead you to impulsive action right now, because that will have serious consequences. This happened to me the other day actually, if someone stole the mobile phone out of the front seat of your car, which was sitting in your garage at home. So this is enemies and people who steal and criminal acts and so forth. If someone stole the mobile phone out of the front seat of your car, don't go off impulsively chasing them down the street with a machete. I didn't do that, by the way. Don't go running after them and attacking them or that sort of thing, because the serious consequences for your impulsive action there could be worse for you than for them. You end up in jail or something. Silly example, but it's a time right now when our frustrations can lead us into a point where we just explode reactively with impulsive, half-cocked ideas and half-cocked actions that cause us a lot of detriment in the long run. What you need to do under this full moon is channel the higher energies of Saturn, which will be to be mature, to be responsible, to be dutiful, to be patient, and to be persevering regarding all these things. Yes, your employees are driving you bonkers right now, and you're wondering, have I got the money to pay them their wages even though they're not working? And that can be frustrating. But if you act maturely, if you act from a point of wisdom, if you act from a point of patience with them, you're going to do better in the long run than to go off half-cocked about something. If you're frustrated because your work endeavors are just not amounting to much right now, you're not seeing results for your efforts, then practice patience, practice endurance. Don't be reactive. If somebody steals the phone out of the front seat of your car right now, practice the energy of sending the issue and the person light and love and moving on. Obviously that drug addict needed that phone, and it's the money that it would get him on the market more than I needed to have that phone, so let him have it. Practice the energy of mature responses to things rather than overreaction and going off half-cocked, and you'll do so much better in the long term for the next 2 weeks and also the next 6 months. Capricorn rising. Well, for you guys, this is the full moon falling in your 5th house. 5th house is the house of, I'll just hold that straight. House of fortune, house of children, house of romance, and our hobbies and the things we love and our creative intelligence. So in this house, you might be feeling frustrated with these things. Your children. Hello, how many posts have I seen on Facebook about parents who are having to homeschool kids right now and they're just at their wits' end? Frustration with children, frustration with lovers, frustration with, maybe you're in a situation where you started dating someone just as all this hoo-ha erupted in the world, and you haven't been able to see them for a couple of months now. And it's like, I'm so frustrated. I just want to see my new passion, my new love. So frustration with lovers. Frustration with your creative intelligence. Maybe you work in a creative field and you just haven't been able to go into work and do your work because lockdown, because quarantine. And you're frustrated because you have this creative outlet that is your work, or that is your passion, and you can't do it for some reason or another. So I want to tell you guys, under this influence of the new moon, these frustrations might lead you to do some sort of very impulsive act that could have very serious consequences for your future. So do be careful right now. This influence of this full new moon rather is very strong. So, if you have an impulsive action regarding your kids, you might regret it down the track. If you have an impulsive action regarding your lover and you decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to go see them, I don't care, screw the lockdown regulations, I'm going to drive to go see my lover in the neighboring town, and you get pulled over halfway there, and fine, thank you very much, $1,000 later. So serious consequences can happen from irrational sort of reactive acts right now. I mean, this goes without saying, but this is the realm where you guys are likely to feel it the most. So you must exercise an energy of maturity. You must exercise an energy of patience and perseverance. These are the higher qualities of Saturn, which is making a square to this new moon, meaning that it could be very challenging to grasp these higher levels, these mature levels, these patient, these enduring levels of Saturn. But you've got to reach for those. You've got to strive for that if you are to navigate this time for the next 2 weeks until there is a full moon in Scorpio, or for some people it'll be the next 6 months when we have the full moon in Taurus. This is a time for persevering and enduring. Okay, if we are Aquarius rising, hold that there. If we are Aquarius rising, well, new moon is falling in our 4th house. And so it is in this realm that we might feel frustrated. We've been in lockdown with our elderly mother, and we've just had a gutful, like, oh, if I have to watch that stupid TV show with her one more time, I think I'm going to go crazy. Or we're in a situation with our family that's frustrating, or there's something about the maternal line that's driving us a bit bonkers now, our heritage, our roots, our lineage. Maybe there's something wrong with our home. Maybe we've been, we booked 6 months ago to have the builder come and build us some new laundry cupboards, and because of lockdown, they can't come. They're not doing any internal work right now. And so you're like, oh my God, I just want these laundry cupboards. It's been taking ages. How much longer have I got to wait? And our frustration level gets to fever pitch under this influence of this new moon in your 4th house of home, heritage, roots, lineage, family, mother. So I want to tell you guys, avoid impulsive actions in these areas right now, and avoid arguing with your mum over what TV show you're going to watch on telly. Avoid ringing the builder up and giving him a head full of steam about, when are you coming to do my laundry cupboards? Avoid that. Avoid any impulsive actions that have to do with your home, your domestic life, your relationships with family members, particularly the maternal line and the mother. Avoid impulsive actions that could have serious consequences in the future. When Saturn is making this hard aspect to the new moon, impulsive Uranus meets serious Saturn, and we see serious consequences for our impulsive actions. Not pleasant. So the way to navigate this is actually to draw on the higher levels of Saturn energy, which is to be mature, to be responsible, to be enduring, to be persevering right now. And the more we can do this, the more we can navigate this period of time with greater balance. So it's not going to be easy to channel these higher energies of Saturn, and that's because it's being aspected by a square. That means sort of blockage and restriction to being able to grasp the higher levels of Saturn, but you've got to try for it. And this is going to last for the next 2 weeks till there's a full moon in the sign of Scorpio, or for some people it'll last for the next 6 months until there is a full moon in the sign of Taurus. So it is a time where we're going to have to practice a great deal of endurance despite our frustrations. But you've got to reach for it. You've got to try for it in these realms if you're to come out the other side and experience the positivity that this time can bring. And you'll know what I'm talking about by what I described in the intro to this video. Okay, if you are Pisces rising, this new moon is falling in your 3rd house, and so this is the realm where you might be feeling frustrated, like there's tension, like the shaken up Coke bottle with the lid about to come off and explode everywhere. This is the realm, and it's to do with your maybe your small business, maybe you're running a small business. This is the house of small business, and there's just restrictions and blockages with your small business. There's frustrations with your small business. There's restrictions and blockages with buying and selling and trade. Third house, maybe with advertising. There's something going on with marketing, with using social media. There might be a restriction or blockage that comes into your life that you weren't anticipating as a result of this new moon, and that just irritates you and sends you off the Richter scale. Maybe you're a teacher and you're frustrated at having to teach people by video Skype session instead of being able to be in the classroom with them. That can be very irritating right now for Pisces rising people. But anything to do with learning, communicating, writing, speaking, publishing, social media and the internet, and small business and trade. These are the realms, or also siblings also. These are the realms where you might get absolutely frustrated to the back teeth. And because of your frustration, you might find that you act impulsively now and you go off half-cocked, Maybe your brother's been driving you up the wall and, you send them a text message of abuse and you're like, just piss off, and blah, blah, and it can have serious consequences now. Your impulsive actions. Uranus is impulsive reactions that have serious consequences because of the square from Saturn. So do be careful about acting impulsively and irrationally right now over your frustrations, over the things that are frustrating you. You need to draw on the higher levels of Saturn. The maturity, the endurance, the responsibility, the duty, the perseverance. Draw on those qualities. It's going to be hard to do that because there is a square coming from Saturn to this new moon experience. So it means there's going to be blockage for us being able to channel those higher energies of Saturn, but you've got to strive for it. You've got to try to be mature, to be responsible, to be patient and enduring in the face of this frustration that you're feeling in this realm of life. Be adaptive, be mature right now. And if you can do that for the next 2 weeks until there's a full moon, fruition of this new moon in the sign of Scorpio, then you will see the consequences, hopefully positively, of your being able to be patient and be enduring and persevering. For some people, there might have to be a wait of around 6 months to see the fruition of this full moon. And that will be when there is new moon, and that will be when there is a full moon in the sign of Taurus in 6 months' time. Some people might have to endure and persevere with a certain frustration for around 6 months. But I want you to, trust in the process of the universe and draw on that maturity that will help get you through. As I said in the intro, there are ways to navigate these times. If they're frustrating for you, do check that out. But if you can persevere, then the results can be very beneficial in time. So that's Pisces. And finally, Aries, who have had to be patient, who've had to draw on their ability to endure to get to their reading, which is not usually something they enjoy doing. So thanks for sticking with me, Aries people. But this is putting the new moon in your second house. This is the realm where you might be feeling frustrated. And there might be an energy of tension and irritation present regarding second house things. And this is our money, our income, how, our resources are going, how our investments are going. The stock market, or our investments on the stock market. The second house doesn't rule the stock market itself, but it does rule our investments on the stock market. Our self-worth and our self-value might, be triggers for our frustration right now. Our irritation can come from these things because Uranus is the planet of wanting to break free, and Saturn's blocking it. Saturn's restricting it right now, holding it back. And so what happens when something that wants to break free is being held down and restricted? It kind of like reaches explosion point. And so you've got to be careful right now, because there's going to be an impetus there to just explode, to have go off with some impulsive action. Screw this restriction that's on my what I should and shouldn't buy on the stock exchange. I'm just going to go and buy this, that, and the other now. And then serious consequences, 2 months down the track, and you're like, oh my God, why did I go and buy those shares? That was the most foolish thing, just because I felt frustrated and restricted by my money and by my financial situation, about my income, and I went and bought these shares that are just no good, and the company's collapsed, and the company has declared bankruptcy, and I'm doomed. I've lost all this money on the share. So be careful, because your actions right now out of an impulsive place can have serious financial consequences for you in the long term. What you've got to do instead right now is really channel the energy of maturity, patience, perseverance, and endurance. Be a bit conservative with your money as Aries rising people right now. Be sensible. Make well-informed, mature decisions about how you spend your money, where you put your investments, how you, what you throw your money in for the long term. So do channel the higher energies of Saturn. It's going to be somewhat hard to do that, simply because there is a square going on from Saturn to Uranus. So channeling the higher, higher vibrational energies of Saturn is somehow harder to achieve. There's a challenge in getting there. There's restriction in getting there, and that can be difficult. But you've got to strive for it. You've got to try to be mature. You've got to try to be patient. You've got to try to be a bit conservative about your investments right now, so that you don't suffer the serious consequences of impulsive action under the energy of this new moon. Now, in about 2 weeks for some people, we might see the fruition of this action when we have a full moon in the opposite sign, the sign of Scorpio. And for others, it might mean enduring, persevering, and bringing caution into your financial life for the next 6 months when we end up having a full moon in the sign of Taurus. So that is what's happening in the skies this week. I hope this Astro Weather Report has been helpful for you on your journey. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this video this week. And let's close with a prayer. Energy of love, of oneness in the universe, draw us all closer at this time of upheaval on planet Earth. Help us to care, to be compassionate, to be kind to one another, to seek love above all else, to seek the betterment of our societies. Help us to find ways to be compassionate, to be kind, to serve and to give love where we can. And that includes to loving ourselves. Show us where we need to direct our energy and attention to create a better world for ourselves now and in the future, so that the choices we make today benefit us in the long term, in this life and in our future lives as well. And so it is. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this Astro Weather Report, and I will have another one for you next week.